Hello, I wanted to talk about a subject that is what I would consider loaded, but it's not as complex as it initially seems. And it is the result of the statement by a media type which essentially says that the gloves are off with regard to a certain kind of people where they are concerned. So I wanted to welcome you today to the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm Kurt, I am your host, and I'm glad to have you aboard this morning. Today is Saturday, the 5th of December of 2020. And I know that you might be seeing me on Rumble, on the podcast, or on YouTube. If you happen to be looking at me on the podcast, be aware that you can see me on either Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify if you want to do that. I'm going to stop adding that as a disclaimer in the front of this, of my videos, because I'm going to put it into the thing I do on the end. But that having been said, the thing that you need to know is that you can do that. Okay, so the subject of my video today and of the podcast and of the blog post that will be written as well is bias, partiality, objectivity, and rationality. And I wanted to start by sort of explaining what each one of those mean to me in particular and how they sort of relate one to the other. And I wanted to start with bias and partiality. So bias is when a person believes a particular thing, regardless whether they're right or wrong, but they certainly can be correct. When a person believes a certain thing, that person will tend to have a bias in the direction of things that point to or work with that idea. They will tend to gravitate towards solutions that work with their beliefs, basically. With regard to partiality, it's sort of the same thing, but with partiality, it might not be as strong a leaning in that direction. It might be, I just like this. So partiality might be liking chocolate ice cream as opposed to liking vanilla ice cream, say, for example. With regard to objectivity, the idea of objectivity is if it can't be proved empirically, it's not really objective. That would be the way that I would put that. And with regard to rationality, the point is that things should work together and that there shouldn't be any issue with cognitive dissonance, as I've said before, which is the idea that you believe multiple things that don't necessarily match one another. And I'd like to say this. I don't think there's anybody who's completely unbiased. Okay? Not even babies. They come out of the womb, they experience certain things, and it makes it so biases come into play with regard to things for them. Nobody's totally objective as far as I can tell. We all have things that we believe on faith and so forth, and that's just a matter of reality and truth. Nobody is totally rational. We all tend to believe things that there are not good reasons for us to believe, and that don't fit together with other things. Again, cognitive dissonance comes into play here as well. And I think pretty much everybody is partial as well. So all of these things are things that I don't think anybody does perfectly. And I bring this up because there is an expectation that media of any sort will be unbiased, will be impartial, will be objective, and generally speaking, that what they present and represent will be rational in nature. And this is really not the case. And here's the thing. I hear people say, oh yeah, well, what about this group that says they are, or that group that says they are? They're not. And my answer is that's fine, because really none of them is. And so that's totally okay as far as I'm concerned. The bad part for me is that there are a lot of people out there who will not admit that they are unbiased, who will not admit that they're not objective, who will not admit that they're not totally rational all the time, and that they're not partial to particular things and ways of looking at life. And this is sort of the bad thing in my mind. Recognizing that these things are things that apply to just about everybody is not just important. It's not just necessary. It's entirely desirable as well. It is something that you should desire to do. You can look at, so again, the initial thing that I was looking at that brought this to mind is there was a media personality who basically was saying that the gloves were off with regard to how that particular individual was going to deal with a certain group of people that they didn't care for particularly. And my answer to that is, well, at least now you're being honest. At least now you're showing your bias. At least now you're making it quite plain to everyone that the bias exists, that it's there, and the result is that now we will know that you are biased and expect that you are biased. Now, in my way of looking at things, I already pretty much knew that, and I already pretty much had that as an expectation. So there's nothing really new or exciting or special there as far as I'm concerned. That didn't really have any serious effect on me. And the result is, when I heard it, I kind of went yawn. But the one thing that I have to say is that I was actually glad to hear the person indicate that they were biased. That person probably didn't realize that they were doing it. They probably hadn't come to the conclusion that they were being biased in what they were doing. But they were. And there's no doubt of the fact that they were. Any individual looking at that could have seen that it was the case. But what I have noticed is that there are certain parts of the media that wish to sell themselves as without bias. And I'm here to tell you that's just not true. I don't care who it is, they're all biased. All of them. Everybody out there doing media things. And that means that if I talk about the quote right-wing media, I say they're biased. But here's the thing about it. By implication, by their name being referred to as the right-wing media, the answer is, forgive me, duh, of course they're biased. And if there are people who couch themselves on the left, those people likewise, they're biased. And that's not even a question or a doubt. So the point that I'm making here is none of this should be surprising, but unfortunately for a good many people, it is. CNN is unbiased. Fox is unbiased. Whoever is unbiased. And my answer is no, none of those is. I'm not just saying CNN's not biased. I'm saying CNN's not biased. I'm saying Fox News is not biased. I'm saying Rush Limbaugh is not biased. I'm saying, Rachel Maddow is not unbiased. I'm saying Conan O'Brien is not unbiased. I'm saying Ben Shapiro is not unbiased. So many people that people might look at and tend to say they're unbiased, right? And they're just not. Nobody's unbiased. And so the thing to me is recognizing their bias, knowing what it is, so that when you look at what it is that they're saying and doing, you are looking at it from a position where the bias is taken into consideration when you look at them. That's a very important thing. It's a very important thing in my opinion. You should always be aware that everyone around you is biased, and that includes news personalities and even people that you look at and go, that person seems fair-minded and everything else. Bias can present itself in so many ways. What you do or don't report, what details you put into or leave out of reports, how you tend to talk about people in disparaging ways for some people and glowing ways for others. These are all functions of bias. And I'm not saying that bias or lack of objectivity or partiality are bad things. Lack of rationality to me is a bit of a problem, but the others, they're not necessarily bad things. And again, the important thing is that I and others know that those things exist and that there are things for you, that that's how that is for you. So this is kind of my take on the whole ball of yarn. When you hear somebody talking, pay attention to how they talk about this person or that person. Do they talk about them in glowing terms? Do they talk about them in disparaging terms? And that if they consistently talk about somebody in disparaging terms or consistently talk about somebody as if they're the Messiah come again, you know that that person almost certainly has a bias in one direction or another. And if you start paying attention to what they say, you will begin to realize that that person's bias shows through not just in their discussion of that individual, but in the discussion of others as well. Okay, it's getting about time for me to wrap up, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. As I say, today is Saturday, the 5th of December of 2020, and this is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm Kurt. I'm your host, as I've said before, and I'm glad to have you along, whether you're on the podcast, on Rumble, on YouTube, and hopefully I will be able to make another Daily Summation on Sunday, the 6th of December of 2020, and that will be obviously tomorrow. And hopefully we will see you then. Hopefully your day and the rest of your weekend is a good one. and everything works out well for you. And again, hopefully we will see you again tomorrow. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Saturday the 5th of December 2020. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S. .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.